What is up, everyone? Gym Guys Podcast, episode 19. Can't believe it. Every time we say it, it's another one under the belt. Episode 19, and we have a lot to share tonight with a great guest. If you're looking to find us, it's Gym Guys Pod on Instagram, Gym Guys Podcast on YouTube. And before we get to our very, very special guest, and you're definitely going to want to listen, and you're probably going to want to rewatch it to make sure you pick up everything. Let me introduce you to our co-host below me, Jason Budsock, no pun intended, VP of Product Development for Animal for over 2 decades, one of the greatest guys. You could trust what you're taking into your body with this gentleman behind the scenes. So check out animalpack.com if you haven't already. Jason Budsock, the man behind the scenes making these great products and formulas. And to his side, Eric Schwartz, CEO, president of Paw Power. You see that logo behind him. Always hits a single bicep shot. Scott, I don't know what the deal is, but he's just addicted to it.
I shouldn't do it tonight because Scotty's bicep peaks will blow mine away. So.
I won't be doing it. Again, maker of great dog supplements, involved with dog rescues. I say this on every episode because I want to make sure everyone remembers it or goes out and tries to find it. If anything else, please try the Paw Power Omega Oil. It's the fish oil. It's absolutely fantastic. It'll help your dog eat their food that much better. It'll help them give it better hair, skin, and nails and coat. It's obviously good for bones and just overall well-being. So make sure you check out pawpowernutrition.com. So as I get into my guests, a couple of great things to talk about. I mean, the history of how long he's been in the game and what he's done in the game, starting off with wrestling in high school, going to Oswego in college and creating his own weightlifting and fitness club. From there, working with Gold's Gym and Gold's Gym Nutrition Analysis, which you're all going to learn what that word is and what that meant to the industry and how groundbreaking it was at the time. And obviously taking that program, Gold's Gym Nutrition Analysis, and turning it into Apex and what it is today. Just great, groundbreaking, forward-thinking nutrition and advice, things that you weren't used to reading, things that you aren't used to listening to with all the bro science out there. So again, you're going to want to pay attention. He's the proud owner of the Redwood Global Partners, which I believe is a staffing recruiting company. He also has his own pet store called Scoopy Doos. I mean, there's really like nothing that this guy's not doing. And probably one of the most unbelievable things is at the ripe old age of 60, just won the Team Universe, both Classic and Masters in the 50 class and in the 60 class, and earned 4 IFBB Pro cards at 60. I was very honored, blessed to have witnessed it myself. If you think you were dieting or you're conditioned, please watch the footage of this because you'll think twice and it'll get you back into the gym and it'll make sure it'll get you back to dieting the way you should be. So without further ado, and there's so much more I could do to introduce him, but I want to get right to it so all of us can enjoy the content. Scott Appelbaum. Scott, thank you so much for being on this podcast with us. And obviously I know you're dear friends with both Eric and getting to know Jay and myself. We want to talk about what's going on in your life, where you're headed with it, what other plans you have, which I can't believe there are more plans. And before we get to all that, just going to touch on some current news and some current updates on what's going on. Big thing going on in the bodybuilding world, very, very well related to the accomplishment that you just made. The Masters Olympia in Romania is going on right now, or I should say tomorrow and Sunday. We got a lot of our fellow brethren in the Masters Olympia, one of them being Vinny Galanti. Yeah. Obviously, a lot of other great pros out there that everyone's expecting to see a lot of. El Garni, we have Darren Charles.
Max Charles is in it as well.
Max Charles is in it as well.
Fred Smalls, Robert Bernica, Josh Lenardowitz, haven't heard from him in a long time. Ken Jackson, Ron Stevens, Tony Lagreen.
What about Rusty Jeffers?
I'm looking. Is he in the 212? Because I don't see him on the open list.
He was supposed to be on the open list.
Okay. I saw pictures of him. So he's oh yeah, he is on this list. I apologize. Rusty Jeffers is there. Mr. Posing, Rusty Jeffers.
Phil Klahar, who just I think he's probably just about 40, and I think didn't he just win or take second at a major show in the last 7 months? Yeah, he won, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's on there. What's the cutoff for this Masters Olympia? Is it 40?
40, yeah.
Okay. So everybody's in one class then, no matter what. You're 40,
Yes,
you're 60,
that's correct.
you're in
Yeah.
one class.
Yeah.
That's kind of tough for the older guys. I mean, that's a big difference between 40 and 60, right?
Oh, that's a huge difference. Yeah.
And then there's a bunch of guys in the 212. I mean, a friend of ours, Derek Farnsworth, is in there. David Henry, Hidetada Yamagishi.
Yeah.
He was looking good on the updates too. Hidetada was looking really tight.
Hida in his prime looked great.
And Kamal's in the 212.
Kamal,
Yeah,
they have Kamal.
Barney.
They have Kamal in the Open in this list
Really?
that I'm looking at.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if that's accurate, but the list I'm looking at.
He was my pick to win just because he really hasn't missed a beat, right? He's just been competing constantly. So that's who I'm going to say will win that, but I could be wrong.
I'm a big fan of David Henry, though. Big fan.
Oh, guy's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Was it the dog crap training, right?
Yeah, he did DC
DC
training.
Yeah.
And and under the tutelage of Dr. Scott Stevens, Scott Stevenson,
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Who's a master of fortitude training.
Served our
Fortitude
country
training.
too, I think. What was that? I'm sorry.
Fortitude training is Dr. Scott Stevenson's, that's his, I guess, version of, he kind of pivoted off of DC training, because that's him and David used to train together. We're training partners.
Wow.
Interesting.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
In Arizona.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I follow bodybuilding.
Wow.
real close,
So Eric and Jay, you're gonna have to watch how much Scott and I get involved in those kind of conversations, because we can go off the rails.
Yeah, I'm sure we can. Yeah.
I was going to ask Scott, so who's your favorite for the 212, and then who's your favorites for the Open in the Masters?
In the Open, I'm thinking, either Phil Klahar or Fred Smalls, probably those two, to be quite honest, And 212, David Henry, I think, is more of an emotional, but if Kamal's in there, I don't think that anybody can touch him,
That's what I thought too.
I think this is tough to predict. I don't know. There's so many wild cards. A lot of these, we haven't seen a lot of these guys in a while, so it's tough.
And I do love Derek Farnsworth. You know what I mean? I remember meeting him at the Olympia in 2000. I think it was 17 or 18 when he was competing. And just a really, really nice guy. So was David,
Yeah. Derek's a great guy, man.
Yeah.
I don't know if he can win it all. He's on a smaller side compared to those guys, but who knows? Anything can happen at these shows.
And he's headed towards 60 now. You know that, right?
Yeah. He's been Mr. Consistent, though. He's not been out of shape.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. Obviously, we're all pulling for Vinny, too. And I know at one point, Scott, I don't even know if it's public, but I know, Scott, you were helping Vinny at one point.
Vinny is, I know Vinny back when we were, both teenagers, or even early 20s. He used to work at a place called Billy's Bodybuilding in Bayonne.
Jersey's, Bayonne, right?
Yeah. But we go way back, In fact, when I actually went in to visit, we actually we met it, and we trained at Diamond Gym together,
Awesome.
Which
That's
is a great gym. Great gym. Just for atmosphere, it's everybody in there is very, very supportive of each other. That's what I loved about it,
There's so many serious guys in the gym that have great physiques that never competed or never will compete, but they're jacked, like jacked dudes in that gym.
I remember Johnny Morant was out of there,
That's right. That was a big dude.
Yes.
He was.
So before we get into interviewing Scott, a little bit of my background with Scott. We've been friends for, I don't know, it's like over 30 years or something. We both worked together in the early 90s in Gold Gym in Staten Island.
Yeah.
And Scott then and now and every time in between has been probably the most disciplined person that I know. And obviously in this sport, there's a lot of people that are disciplined. You have to be successful in bodybuilding. But I'm telling you, Scott is like a machine. I asked him what his cheat meal was going to be after a bodybuilding contest, and I think he said sashimi. I just kind of laughed at that. But I mean, it's amazing how precise Scott is and his dedication. And I've always admired it, Scott. It's amazing, and it's a testament. You've been in shape. You never get out of shape, ever. And it's pretty much a testament. And, it all came to fruition at the Team U, but I've seen this, happening for years, behind the scenes.
Well, remember, I won the Mid-Atlantic the year after Sean Cleary won.
That's right. So that was 2 years in a row that two lightweights won overall?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen often. So to have that happen 2 years in a row is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Scott's just a machine and a wealth of knowledge. I'm going to learn some stuff tonight. He's like an expert on nutrition and health and longevity. And there's a lot to it, a lot of layers to Scott. So we're going to learn a lot tonight.
So hopefully we'll peel back the onion. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of machines, Scott, is that, what's, going down the road or the whole of your dieting and your training, what is your thought on machines versus, free weights and compound movements? I mean, given the ridiculous longevity that you have and still have to continue, everyone's got to listen to what you have to say on something like this.
There's a lot of controversial, information out there, but your muscle does not know whether you're using a free weight or a machine. But when you do use free weights, you have to use those stabilizer muscles. The only thing that the muscles know, it's being asked to work. Everybody goes, oh, I want to go heavy. I go, well, the muscle doesn't know what you're using, how much weight you're using. It just knows it's being put under tension, and you're recruiting fibers, and you damage those fibers, so they have to adapt to that stimulus. So I love free weights because I use it all the time, but I think machines have their place, And again, at 60 years old, I still deadlift, I still squat, but my background on the exercise side is in biomechanics. When I did work for Apex, we acquired the National Academy of Sports Medicine, which was the #1, training certification. And I learned through when I was in college and through them what was proper biomechanics, how muscles work, where they attach, where they insert, what their muscles motion is, And when you know that, all you have to do is add resistance to the muscles motion, And time under tension is where it's at. There's a reason why I can still deadlift and squat at 60 years old. And I don't have any aches or pains. And I'm not just saying that to say it,
So what do you say to people that say, hey, you're getting older, you should slow down, you shouldn't lift as heavy?
Well, it's similar to the people saying, hey, you know what? I'm getting older, and I'm not going to be able to do the things I used to do. That's called planned obsolescence, when I work with people, my goal is to get them to look better cosmetically, but also to, I don't want to say function better, but actually we are now living longer than we've ever lived, right? That's our lifespan. But what is our play/health span? They should be equivalent. Unfortunately, 1 out of every 3 baby boomers, which I'm a part of, is going to need long-term care. That's a staggering statistic. And that has to do with exercise, nutrition, and supplementation, that does not take place in the majority of the population. So we're living longer, but we're not living better.
And take it from me, from my experience with my father, you want to do everything you can to avoid going into that system. If you can stay healthy and you're independent, you're going to want to do that. Just step into any nursing home. No offense to first responders and everything those people do. They do a lot of great things and sacrifice, but being able to be on your own and be that much stronger and be functional is like worth its weight in gold.
100%. I want to burn out like a bright light. I do not want to slowly dim, and I don't want anybody I work with to slowly dim. And a lot of people, unfortunately, are slowly dimming. I see it, especially down here in South Florida.
Right.
That's a good saying.
People go down there when they retire, they become sedentary, right?
Yeah.
I think so many people in a rush to retire, and I've seen too many people that once they retire, they kind of deteriorate.
Yeah, retirement is a horrible term. I think I'm busier now at 60 than I was at 30.
So tell us what you're, what are you doing? Well, I know I know, but I want you to tell the audience what you do, like on a daily basis.
Yeah. Well, my day starts at about 3:45, a.m. in the morning. I'm at the gym at 5. I love training early in the morning. It's my passion. It starts a day off right. So there's 3 things I'm involved in right now. One is I own my own staffing and recruiting firm called Redwood Global Partners that I've been involved in recruiting for about 20 years. Worked for a firm for 10 and then started my own. I have my own coaching and training business that I've been doing since I got involved in the industry back in the late 80s when I started working for Nutrition Analysis, and then it became Apex. I first worked in a gym. In fact, I was managing the gym and met, the person who started Nutrition Analysis, the president of Nutrition Analysis, Neil Spruce. And I go, this is exactly what I wanted to do, because at that point, the word energy expenditure, thermodynamics, body fat weren't even used And when I heard him speak about this, I go, this is exactly what I want to do. And I actually ran that as a separate business within 3 Gold's gyms and brought them up to within the top 10 in the country. And then they hired me corporately. And I had an affinity to create coursework and also to teach. So I was teaching certification schools for Apex and nutrition analysis all over the country. And then we acquired the National Academy for Sports Medicine, helped develop that curriculum to a certain extent, and then taught those certifications all over, you know? So I've been working with people probably since before coaching was quote unquote coaching, you know? And now when they shut down the country, before they did that, I felt that they were going to do that. I started to acquire equipment because I did not want to stop training. And now I have a fully outfitted, gym in my garage that I train myself in at times, and that clients come to me and train, and I will never train anybody that I'm not going to actually deal with their food, And it's funny that I say that because Neil, who was my boss back then, he was working at a Gold's Gym and he wouldn't sell a gym membership without a diet. So that's why they transitioned him to become the director of nutrition analysis, because Ed Connors said, listen, you can't do that because we still got to sell memberships. I know what you're doing and why you're doing it, but that doesn't really, pay the bills,
Right. It makes sense. Not great business sense, but it makes sense.
Yeah. So I've been doing that for forever. It's a passion of mine, working with people, and it's kind of transitioned to become more not just cosmetic wellness, where it's not just about the calories and the macros, which are very, very important, but where are those coming from? Staying away from inflammatory foods, seed oils. You're talking about the omega peanut butter that Eric's producing. In this country, we are so omega-6 rich. That's why people's cholesterols are high, but their LDLs are so high because we're so omega-6 rich. So getting people to eat the right foods and supplement the right omega-3s is, to me, vital. And people don't realize they're walking around inflamed all day long. That's why the joints, they have aches and pains. When you reduce those inflammatory foods, the body functions so much more efficiently. And that's why I equate that I don't have any aches and pains, And that's why I guess, sometimes too much knowledge is crazy because, I know what's in everything that we eat out there, where sometimes ignorance is bliss,
Right.
And so I'm very, very careful of what I put into my body. Like, people take care of their cars better than they take care of their bodies. But you can replace your car. You can't replace this vessel,
Scott, is there a way that you could quickly run down like how your food looks like, just to give any of the listeners an idea of like what does a typical daily intake look like?
Yeah. What I'll say is, okay, so we know there are 3 food groups. There's protein, carbs, and fats. I mean, we all know that, okay? But everybody is so carb heavy. And I'm not anti-carb in any way, shape, or form. But what I mean is that the 2 food groups, protein and fats, are essential. What I mean by that is you can't store protein, so you got to give yourself several feedings throughout the entire day. Fats, they're what? Essential fatty acids, need to be getting from the diet. Carbohydrates, their main function is to provide what? Energy. But unfortunately, us as humans do not expend that much energy as we used to. That's why our caloric needs are low and our need for carbohydrate is low. I use the perfect example is, the first bar that was really mass produced was Power Bar, right?
I remember, yeah.
Okay. And it was made for what? Long-distance cyclists.
Yeah.
Cyclists. And it was what? If you remember, it was very carbohydrate heavy, and it was very flexible, and they used to wrap it around their handlebars and eat it as they were riding. So people, wow, cyclists should be for us as well. And that was really how bars really got developed. You know what I mean? That's how far my mind goes back,
Wow.
But carbohydrates are important, but they're not as important as what people make them be, because we don't expend enough energy. We don't live in an agricultural society anymore. We're out in the fields farming. We live in a very sedentary society, and that's why,
more than ever. We're freaking DoorDash now. You don't have to leave your house to go get food.
No, it's a big issue driving through, not even getting out of the car to walk into a restaurant or and one of the things that the Apple Watch has really helped me and my clients is I make sure that every single client, in addition to their exercise, gets 10,000 steps per day. And I will tell
I
you
like it.
to a letter, everybody that implements that has much better results that don't. Because it's all about what? Movement. We don't move enough. We don't, and so you can eat more and eat more carbohydrates if you're expending more energy, like, it's funny. I work with clients that were, in several shows, and I turned this guy pro, and he's like, wow, I can't believe this show. I didn't do that much cardio. I go, do you know why? I go, you were unemployed the last 2 shows. You worked for Amazon this show. You were in and out of that truck for 13, 14 hours a day. So I didn't need to give you that much cardio. You were expending energy. It's all about 24-hour energy expenditure.
Right.
So that's why
Okay.
getting out and the 10,000 or 12,000, whatever I actually will recommend to a client, based on where they're going, is so vitally important. It's not just the cardio you're doing in the gym. You're going to do that. It's what are you doing the rest of the day as far as energy expenditure, and that's why going on a really, caloric restrictive diet is not that good, because you're going to conserve energy. You're going to want to sit down. You're going to want to rest. You're going to want to nap. So there's a balance that needs to be reached,
Great points.
Really good point. That kind
look, there's basically, okay, you take a look at energy expenditure, okay? You take a look at your RMR, your BMR, which is your resting metabolic rate, okay? That's a certain amount of calories that you burn at rest, right? Doing nothing.
Yep.
Then you have exercise calories, okay, where you burn weight training as well as, cardio, okay? And people say to me, like, what do you prefer, weight training or cardio? I go, well, given a choice, if you only have, one you're able to do, it's going to be weight training. And they go, why? I go, because if you weight train correctly, the EPOC, which is excess post-oxygen consumption, is so much greater after weight training than it is after cardio. So why? Because you create muscle damage, which you have a cleanup, reorganizational, and growth phase. That takes a ton of calories, which is going to take about 24 to 48 hours, where a couple of hours after doing cardio, your metabolic rate is right down. And let's say I'm working with you, Jason, right? And you lose 20 pounds of body fat because I did everything right with you, and you're doing cardio, okay? So now you're carrying around 20 pounds less on your body all day long. Now it's fat that you didn't want, but are you burning less calories? And the answer is yes, because if I put a 20-pound pack on your back, you're going to burn more calories. Plus, you're doing cardio. So I'm sure from a heart perspective, your heart is now beating less beats a minute every single minute of the day, all day long. Great for your heart, but you're burning less calories because every time your heart beats, it takes calories. That's why weight training is the magic bullet. It augments you getting to that plateau by losing body fat and getting more efficient, And that's why that's why you also put the 10,000 steps in, because you have to augment that because of energy expenditure, There's a balance that needs to be created. So you have your exercise, you have your BMR, which is just at rest, and that has to do with the amount of muscle that person has, And then we have exercise calories, and then we have your heat, yes, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. That's all the activity you do other than training. Then we have TEF, thermic effect of food. Just by changing so much macronutrients to more protein and fat, we can increase burn, because protein takes a lot more energy to digest than carbohydrates and fat. Because people go, what do you mean? I go, listen, put a potato chip in your mouth, which is a carbohydrate, right? Don't swallow it. Keep chewing it and chewing it. It's going to turn sweet in your mouth, because in your saliva, there's an enzyme that starts to break down that potato into sugar right into your mouth. So that's what really equates to your metabolic rate, And fidgeters, someone who fidgets burns 10 to 20% more calories than someone that doesn't fidget. Someone who's always shaking their leg or shaking their hands.
Okay.
So it's all about getting that metabolism to be as fast as possible through those. You get more muscle, your BMR, your RMR. Your weight training is going to be, it has as a huge role. Your cardio it's a tool, but it's an overused tool, and then getting people to move all day long. That's why I think dogs are the best thing to have, because you got to take them on a walk every single day. I take my dogs, when I was prepping, I took my dogs on a walk, a mile plus walk twice a day, in addition to my cardio.
Right.
I was hitting about 13 to 14,000 steps.
Wow.
Interesting. Dorian Yates actually said during a lot of his Olympia preps, his only cardio was walking his bulldogs.
Yeah.
Wow.
Or dogs.
Yeah.
So Scott, Jason did ask you, what do you eat in a typical day? So can you run that down? Because we're all
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah. I get up, everybody goes, oh, do you train on an empty stomach? I'll go, well, not really, because whatever I ate the night before is actually in the cells of my body. Okay.
Well, you
It's
do
such a
train
misnomer
fast,
that you have to have what?
but you are essentially training fasted, right?
Yeah, well, because there's a reason. If I eat something prior to training, you have two nervous systems. You have a parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. Now they're going to be competing. Why? Because you're forcing the blood to go into your muscle, but the blood actually wants to go into your stomach to help digest that food. Even if it's
you
shakes.
like an hour and a half before, Scott? Like,
Well, I'm getting up.
He's training up so early, yeah.
Getting
Don't need
ready. Yeah, but immediately after I train, I have 2 scoops away, isolate. And with no fats, because I want to get it immediately digested, Then within an hour and a half to 2 hours later, I will have 6 pasture raised eggs.
Oh,
In fact, I have a farm here that I actually get my eggs from. This woman has chickens.
nice. So 6 whole
And I
eggs
gotta
you
tell you,
do.
they taste better than Vital Farms, although Vital Farms is probably the next best thing,
Yeah, that's what I get. The Vital Farms.
And I do a cream of rice cereal because it's easily digested, So and then about 3 hours later, some wild salmon. Salmon is probably my favorite fish. I could eat, and Eric could probably, I eat the same thing every single day. My wife can't get over it for years.
Years.
Every
amazing.
single day,
Like a machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, the consistency.
And vegetables, for 2 reasons. Why? Having with that meal for what? Fiber, but as well as satiation. Most people don't eat up again. That's not someone who has a huge fast metabolism that can't gain weight. Someone like that, I don't give that much fiber because I need that increased volume of calories. Everybody's an individual. But I still give them usually 2 to 3 servings of vegetables a day just for motility, and digestion. But salmon and some vegetables, depending on where I am, it'll within how I'm training, what cycle I'm in, it's going to be, usually some rice. I'm not a big potato guy, Then 3 hours later, what I've been on lately is I love either it's 85-15 beef, or I've been eating orange roughy. I've been eating for years, and I found a source for it, which is a really great, flavorful fish, And at that point, it's probably just, a vegetable with some macadamia nut oil. Why? Because orange roughy is very low in fat, And macadamia nut oil is a phenomenal monosaturated fat. And then my next meal is usually beef, and it's, 100% grass-fed, grass-finished, There's a company that I get my beef from out of Nebraska, and they actually, because most grass-fed beef, believe it or not, is gotten internationally, not within the country. Believe it or not, I don't know if you know that.
I didn't know that. Wow.
These
And a lot is grass-fed but grain-finished, right?
Yeah, it's got to be 100% grass-fed or grass-fed, grain-finished on the label.
Right. So what's the name of that company, just in case somebody wants to look it up?
Piedmontese, certified Piedmontese
okay.
beef, and it's the Piedmontese cattle that's been imported from Italy, and they graze in Nebraska. Great company, great company.
I saw they were sponsoring some bodybuilders in our industry.
I saw that. Yeah.
I need
Yeah.
a meat sponsorship.
They honestly, I don't even buy steak when I'm out because their steak is so good.
Really? Is it reasonably priced or is it crazy?
I think it is. Yeah,
Okay.
it is.
Okay.
In fact, I know Mark Bell's podcast, is they're like they sponsor Mark Bell, and there's a discount code that they have as well. And then if you order $150 worth of stuff, it's free shipping and usually 2 to 3 day shipping.
Okay, cool. Comes frozen?
And my favorite is flat iron steak, the best.
Flat iron. Okay.
Definitely got to check that out.
Really, really good. So, it's carbohydrate, focused within the beginning of the day, and then more protein and fat towards the end of the day, given where I am, with my age and my energy expenditure,
And what's your thoughts as far as, do you feel you need to supplement with that? And what would you supplement with? Because you obviously got the two gurus on this podcast about subs.
And Eric knows this. I'm a
Got the
big
sub junkie.
yeah. I research supplements all the time, all the time. Yeah, and then I bounce stuff on Eric. I bounce stuff off Eric all the time.
Okay. What do
You
you,
know,
what do you think,
anything
like,
anything that's third party tested is what I'll trust. Period.
Okay.
And NSF is the number one third party testing company in the world. Unfortunately, as you all know, there are no regulations really when it comes to producing supplements, and someone can produce something in their bathtub.
There is regulation. There's not enough enforcement.
There's never enforcement.
Yeah, that's where the
good way
problem
to
is.
explain it.
Yeah.
If you had like to pick like a trick or like one that you like, the two that you like, Scott, and I've learned some for myself, even in the later ages, that I would like, wow, if I knew about this when I was 30 or 40, I would have used it. What's like one or two supplements that you're like, wow, I should tell everyone about this. This is something that really works. That's just underrated, unappreciated.
An omega-3, a good multivitamin, vitamin D, and then the last thing, for performance, creatine. Nothing beats it.
Yeah.
Those would be my top 4.
Okay. Yeah. Highly researched. Just stick to the basics. Got a lot of great.
But nobody does the basics, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and especially
there's nothing sexy about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The younger kids, like I see like on TikTok, they go right for the pre-workout. That's the first thing they get, and it's probably not the first thing they should purchase.
Well, I'm not a fan. I personally not a fan of stimulants, especially around the workout, because as it is when you train, you're increasing blood pressure. Now you're artificially increasing it more, which is bad enough as it is. But most people, when they have a problem, because nobody's dropping dead, a lot of people not dropping dead in the gym, and what happens is it happens at night when they're sleeping. Why? Because the body doesn't like those huge swings. That's the problem. High blood pressure is bad enough, but when the pendulum swings from high all the way to low, the body doesn't like dramatic changes, and that's when the issues happen.
Interesting. Oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to drop that habit anytime soon. I definitely like to use pre or stims before I train, but nothing crazy.
I do, but I like lower stim.
Yeah, I'm definitely like I could be fine with like 200 milligrams, like max. I'm like more than fine. Usually like 150 actually.
But now every company's trying to one up themselves.
Oh yeah, no,
because they want somebody to feel it, like
Yeah.
and there's a lot of competition
it's the
out there, so it's
gratification,
tough.
right?
Yeah.
Look, I can tell when someone I'm training with has had a pre-workout. They have a pre-workout. They come in, they go, I got to run to the bathroom. Because what happens is just like everybody goes, oh, coffee makes me go to the bathroom. No, it's the caffeine. It causes peristalsis within the large intestine, which is going to make you go. It has nothing to do with coffee per se,
Creatine did that.
Coffee.
Creatine did that to me the first time I took it, but I messed up the instructions. Well, I didn't really mess it up. This was way back in the day. First, EAS was selling creatine, phosphagen. I get it home, and I was going to train. I was training later in the day at that time, or at night. And the instructions say to load up 4 5-gram servings in a day. Well, I thought it'd be a good idea to take all 4 at once before I train.
20 grams all at once, right?
Oh no.
We literally drove to the gym. I was with the late, unfortunately, Troy Travasi, and we start warming up. I did 1 set, and I had to run to the bathroom. It was brutal. So lesson learned.
So everyone try the Schwartz loading phase, please.
Yeah.
There's no
I don't recommend it unless you want to lose a lot of water weight. It's a good diuretic.
Well, in fact, Eric and I trained at a place called Body Master, which was
what a great
a
gym.
really hardcore gym back in the late 80s,
Legendary gym in Staten Island. Legendary.
In fact, the owner of the gym used to train at a place called R&J, and that's really aging myself because most people who probably listen to this podcast don't even know.
From Pumping Iron.
In Brooklyn, yeah, exactly. It wasn't
In Pumping Iron. Lou Ferrigno's training there in Pumping
Yeah.
Iron.
Oh, that's the RNJ. Wow, with
Yeah.
the paneling and everything. Wow.
Julie
Wow.
Levine, that was the guy who owned it.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
And I know, and Chris, I don't know if when it comes to nutrition analysis and Apex, a lot of your gladiators, from American Gladiators, worked with Apex.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. Have you guys seen the documentary on Netflix?
Yes, of
That's
course I
what-
have. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
good, man.
to your point, Scott, and Eric, you were just mentioning it. My friends have been asking me, "Hey, have you watched it?" Everyone's obviously watching Arnold, that series, and then they're watching the Gladiators. And I said, "No, I honestly haven't watched it yet, but I will tell you, it was amazing training at Gold's back in the '90s and seeing Nitro and Zap and Siren. I mean, they were all training there all the time. It was like they were just part of the atmosphere, part of the background
Yeah.
all the time."
Well, it's
Wild.
funny because I was there in the 90s as well. And I went back, I gone back several times. And the last time I was there was, like 2019, right before Christmas. It was really months after this when they shut the country down. And there was homeless all over in Venice,
Yes, yeah.
and, it wasn't like it was in the 90s. I'd walk in there and I'd see Hollywood stars, NBA players, MLB players, and every bodybuilder migrated there, and it was like, because I used to we used to teach a school in Santa Monica for Apex. And I used to go train at Gold's every afternoon, after I taught. And it was incredible. And I took my wife there with me in, 2015, 16, 17, 18, and it just changed so much,
It also became very corporate.
Yes.
It's very expensive. I think a day pass was like $40.
Yes, $40, yes.
Crazy. And just very corporate. Like they took down some of the pictures, not all of them, but it just became more of a corporate fitness place.
It is so much different. And if anyone wants to see what it is today, probably recommend you watch one of the Jay Cutler videos. Very recent. He was training there, or I know Ronnie and Arnold were just training there, and you'll see
That was cool. Did you guys watch that video? It's on YouTube.
Yeah,
Ronnie and Arnold training together.
Yeah,
Just
I did see
Arnold.
that.
Arnold does go there every day because when I was there with my wife, he was training literally right opposite me. He brings his bike there every single day. So that is 100% true.
Arnold's banter with Ronnie is just great. It's just awesome.
It is the best. Yeah.
And I'm not a fan. Arnold's mechanics are terrible, by the way. I was watching him train. I'm like, what is this guy doing?
Yeah, you could argue that. Whatever, either it's genetics or it just worked for him, whatever.
Yeah. His mechanics were better when he was younger, though. When you watch Pumping Iron, which I watch,
Yeah.
Still pretty cool to see him active at 70. I think he's 70. It's very, very cool to see how active
think
he is.
he's
He just hit
75.
75. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Hulk Hogan just hit 70 the other day. Like,
Really?
it's cool to see those guys still kind of like active and going at
Look
it.
at
Yeah, I love that.
Robbie Robinson, man. I mean, my God. I mean, that guy's unbelievable.
Robbie Robinson?
Yeah.
Still in good shape.
Just defying gravity. It's incredible.
Yes. He's a very eclectic guy, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's out there. Yeah, he's out there.
There was one interview on Generation Iron. If no one's watched it yet, watch that, and you'll definitely find out how eclectic Robbie Robinson is. It was pretty interesting. It was maybe a couple months ago. Definitely worth a watch.
It's funny. Kids today who train or who say they're quote unquote into bodybuilding don't even know Joe Weider's name.
Mm-hmm.
And without Joe Weider, there would be no bodybuilding.
I say all the time, and the gym I go to right now got a lot of good young bucks that are, some are posing and maybe they shouldn't be posing, but the fact that they are and they're into it and they that they're training, I shouldn't say that they shouldn't be posing, but less to show, if you will. But they want to get into a show and they want to go through the whole process. And they say, what do you recommend? What should I do? I'm like, go watch Lila Brada, go watch Francis Benfato, watch some of these, clips on YouTube, and you're going to see the posing that you really just can't see in this day and age. And you're going to learn which angles work for you and how people practice. And I remember even, me and you were probably in the gym at the same time in the 90s, although you go a lot earlier than I do, to Gold's Venice back in the day. But I mean, Flex Wheeler would be in that posing room for like the longest time with Charles Glass, and he would just run him through the mandatories like no other. And that's you could tell guys like him, Phil Heath, when they got up there and they posed, they just on the stage, they were so good at it.
Yeah.
And,
the art of practicing posing, which is important. Knockwood Redcon has a posing room. So I used to, right after I trained every single day, I would go in there and do rounds posing, and then when I got on stage, I felt so incredibly comfortable,
It's
like a sports player, practicing over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And holding poses for 30 seconds. So, there's no shaking. You hit a shot, I could hold it, because the two things you can control, three things: your color, your posing, your conditioning. So if this thing, whatever you can control it.
Great advice. Great advice.
And be willing to suffer. And just when you think you're suffering enough, you have to suffer more. And that's really the truth. People don't know what suffering is. And they don't even know what failure is, you know, when training to failure, you know, they think they do, but they don't.
And for bodybuilding, when you think you're lean, you're probably not lean enough. Probably got to get even leaner, right?
That's so true. Very, very true.
You have to go to a place that's very, it's hard to explain, very, very uncomfortable. Very, very uncomfortable.
I remember you telling me, Scotty, at one point, I don't know if it was this prep or a prior one, that you were so lean, like that the bottoms of your feet hurt when you walked.
Yep. I also have a bike, and in Florida, I ride my bike. I was having trouble riding my bike because my butt would get so sore because there was literally no fat on it, you know, even though I put this like gel seat on it, you know, it would get super sore, you know.
I know Dorian was on record saying that when he got that lean and that ridiculous, that when he do like a thigh and ab pose and he stomped his foot, like he's like, I'd hurt the balls of my feet. He's like, because I was just so lean on the stage.
Your feet actually shrink.
Yeah.
Again, you put them in your sneakers, they're smaller, you know?
Yeah. There's no swelling, no water weight, or less water weight.
No.
So Scotty, I know you were very lean, like even before you started your prep, but like how much cardio were you doing during your prep and what type of cardio?
I would use the Cybex Arc Trainer, which I like a lot. Probably my favorite piece of cardio. And I was maximum I was doing 30 minutes once a day.
Wow. And what's the intensity like on that?
It was pretty high as I can get it. You know what I mean? But again, I made sure that as soon as I got back from the gym, I would be walking my dogs for a mile and change. Right. That really enabled me not to do that much cardio because I moved more. Because as we know, cardio could be boring. If anything more than a half hour.
Extreme. Yeah.
So you're talking about like the Drago Rocky 4 like arm circulating thing?
No,
like,
Arc Trainer. It's like a
Arc Trainer.
It's like an elliptical. Okay. It's like an elliptical, right, Scott?
See where my head's at.
Yeah, but it's real. I love that. I love that piece. The one that doesn't have the arm movement, you know?
Right.
Gotcha.
And because it does give some nice glute activation, it's non-impact, and you know you can turn up the resistance as well as the stride length. You know.
So Scotty, I know you're not competing anymore, but your lifestyle really hasn't changed at all, right? You're still eating the same way, training the same way. Yeah, right? You're not getting fat and out of shape. You're not, right?
No, this has been a lifestyle forever. You know, again, wrestling was a restrictive lifestyle anyway, right? You know, because even in the off season, I didn't want to gain weight because I had to be. Again, when I wrestled, there was no restrictions. So a coach said, "Be this weight, this match, and you'd get there." You know, they used to call me the master of weight loss. You know, I used to go to sit in the sauna. Then I'd go back to my house, turn the shower on, and in the bathroom with a rubber suit. Then go to my friend's house because my hot water heater ran out of hot water. You know.
Oh wow!
Back of the bus,
like,
rubber suits.
Sounds like Vision Quest, man.
Back of the bus, you know.
Sounds like Vision Quest.
So
Yes.
I'm curious, Scott. So it sounds like you've had that mindset from when you were younger. Where did that come from? Like, where's your drive coming from? Like, I'm super curious.
I think it was always there. Like when I remember wrestling kind of changed my life. You know, when I tried out for the wrestling team, and I just saw that I had an affinity for it. And I said, well, I can control this. I can control that, you know, and being able to get to a certain way. And that's where my love of altering body composition really started. Because the coach said, I want you at this weight. I go, well, I got to be strong at that weight. So the only thing that I can want to get rid of, I don't want to get rid of any muscle I have because I used to train in the off season and get rid of all the fat. That's where the genesis of this all took place for me. And I used to train in the off season. You know, there were, I'm going to really age myself. There were just gyms that had Nautilus. That was it. Nautilus gyms. You know, Arthur Jones, they had gyms, and I would go through a Nautilus circuit, you know, and it was really, I don't want to say super slow-mo, but it was all time under tension.
I love those old Nautilus pieces, man.
Yes, they're phenomenal, you know, absolutely phenomenal.
What's your thoughts on Mike Mentzer, heavy duty, Arthur Jones style training?
You know what? It has its place, but here's the problem, which I talked about a little while ago. no one gets to that intensity that they need to. They don't realize, because I don't do a huge amount of working sets, but every set that I do is to failure, and people don't get there. So they augment that with just having more volume. That's all. And I'm not saying both don't work, but I know what works for me. And I know, at the cellular level, it's timer detention. Because you take a look at, let's take a look at bodybuilding and powerlifting, okay? Because you've done both. Bodybuilding, you want to make a lightweight feel as heavy as possible.
Right.
Powerlifting, you want to make a heavyweight feel as light as possible. Because your goal is to move that weight, to move that weight from point A to point B.
And shorten the distance if you can, yeah.
Yes, well, and that's why people go, hey, Scott, what do you bench? I go, I don't bench. They go, what do you mean you don't bench? I say, benching is a sport, not an exercise. I said, you have to go back historically. I go, before there were gyms, there were strong men, that did feats of strength like in sideshows, like at a circus. Then who was in the gyms? But weightlifters, which kind of like was similar to what the strongmen did, right? Because everything goes back to history. You have to really know where you came from to find out where you are. And then powerlifters were in gyms. And then all of a sudden bodybuilders came in, as we call them, bodybuilders. But it was really looked down upon that people, guys were being vain and they thought all bodybuilders were gay. I mean, they did. So they do a lot of the powerlifting movements with some accessory movements around them. But they weren't really built for powerlifting. What makes a good bencher? Someone who's got
short arms.
Short arms.
Yep.
So when I look at somebody and I see they have long arms and a thin rib cage, they're not made to bench. Plus,
that's Jason, but it helps them in the deadlift.
True, very, very true.
Yeah.
But if anything you go below 90 degrees, now the tension is being taken off the chest and put it on the shoulder. How many people get off the bench and they go like this?
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Could you be rubbing your pec that it's so inflamed with blood? And it's not, and if you know what the chest does, it makes your arm move here, horizontal, shoulder adduction.
Yeah.
But I ask people, I go, well, doesn't benching do that? I go, okay, do me a favor, put baby oil on your hands. Take the bar off and go to press. What's going to happen to your hands? They're going to slide out. They're not adducting, right?
Abducting at that point.
Yeah, they're abducting. Yeah. So I would say if you want to really effectively work the pec, use a dumbbell. Plus, you use the stabilizer muscles. It's an open chain versus closed chain exercise,
I would agree.
I could talk training, all night long, No, because I look at the gym as a lab, you know what I mean? And with every exercise, and I tell everybody this, there's a risk and a benefit. And I want the benefit to be maximal and the risk to be so minimal. Because every time you go in the gym, you're taking a risk of injury. So I want to minimize that so you can train for as long as possible with no injury.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about that, especially time under tension. I think the negatives, right, are often overlooked too. Negatives is super important.
Well, you cause the most muscle damage on the eccentric component,
Yeah.
But you have to leave your ego, if you even have one, at the door. Leave it at the door. What people go, oh, I used 100-pound dumbbells. I go, that doesn't impress me. I want to show me how you use them. That will impress me,
See so many people focused on the PR, especially these days, the young people.
Social media kind of encourages that.
Yeah, and again, I love seeing the training. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad they're there instead of doing something stupid. They're trying to better themselves, but it's like, man, the PRs, it's just like insane. Like if you're looking for that hypertrophy, you're not going to really get it at that point.
Well, let me take a look at most guys that you're talking about. They don't have any. They have no back. Why? They don't activate their lats. And also when I look at their shoulders, it's all anterior deltoid because they do everything or anterior. We're not working their posterior deltoid, which is probably the most important, muscle to work of the shoulder, because functionally in life, you don't use it. So you see as a man gets older, what? His shoulders are flex forward. Plus he's on a computer all day. He's hunched over, neck is flex forward, but the rear delts will pull you back in position. So I could take 10 years off an old guy's life, just by making sure he can activate his glutes and hamstrings, so he's not pitched forward, because most back issues are not back issues, they're hamstring and glute issues, you know? And working on it on his posterior deltoids to bring his shoulders back. So there's back muscle balance there.
True. So as people get older and they want to have a better quality of life and train and stuff, what are your you have like top 3 tips or something for somebody getting older to continue to have a really good quality of life?
Don't stop moving. You know, people sit down. Look, we were not made to sit in a chair, or especially for as long as we do. That's why there are such tight hips and glutes, because they you know, and I mean, it starts really in the feet, to be quite honest. You know, shoes or foot coverings, if you want to call them, are for function, not for fashion. Why do women have bunions, corns, hammer toes? Because they are putting their feet in a heel, which they should be as close to the ground as possible. And they're fitting their toes into a really small space because it looks good. But look, when like my hand, right? There's space between every finger, right? When I put myself in a shoe, what happens?
I have a bunion. I have a bunion from traditional shoes. And when I switched to barefoot style shoes, it was life-changing for me because it hurt so bad. And now when I wear the right shoes, it's much better. I still have the bunion, but it doesn't hurt anymore.
Yeah. Barefoot shoes are the way to go. Now, but most people buy them and they wear them like out of the box 24/7. You need to sort of, you know, graduate to be able to do that, you know?
True.
There's a company I'm involved with called Vivo Barefoot.
Okay, yes, I've bought
I've heard of them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What do you mean you're involved with? What does that mean?
They found out that I won the universe and that I speak their language, because I mean, what I'm talking about is true, you know, and they sent me a pair, and, you know, they want me to kind of be, to kind of be an affiliate and work with them, you know?
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, I've worn their shoes and zero shoes, Vivo and zeros.
But people, the most important thing is a big toe box and close to the ground as possible, you know? And that's because if you look at the way that's where things start. That's why as they get older, their balance, you know, fails, because your toes should be able to grab the ground.
You mean
Right? If those muscles don't work, they atrophy and get weaker too.
Yeah, that's why you have to slowly build those muscles up and not wear the bare-free shoe. Most people fail in them because they wear them out of the box all the time and their feet start to hurt.
I bought the toe spacers too. I have those correct toes.
Yeah.
Trying to fix it.
Yeah, it's very important. But, you know, people don't realize that, you know, it starts from the bottom all the way up. It's a chain.
So you're not a fan of Crocs then when you train?
No.
A lot of people are wearing them in the gym. A lot of young guys are wearing them.
I have seen that.
Look, I like to train barefoot if I can. I am so much more comfortable training barefoot now.
Do you train barefoot in your house when you train?
Yeah, and even at the gym, I take off my shoes. You know, I was doing some dumbbell, you know, RDLs today, and I always take them off. I was doing, you know, I was squatting today barefoot. I was doing the swing squat barefoot. I feel so much better.
Interesting.
Which is quite honestly, there's a company that makes this called the swing squat. They made it before the pendulum squat was. They're a company, I forgot, out of PA, a very small company, and they had the patent, but everybody copied him, and they were really underfunded that they couldn't find. There was they couldn't sue, you know.
That's
putting up a great engineering. I mean, probably the best piece of leg equipment I've ever seen for the quad.
Right.
Because it's all, you know, because the degrees that you of knee flexion is so incredible, you know, there, you know.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the pendulum, huge fan. I don't like the hack squat. I know a lot of people do. The pendulum squat to me feels so much better.
There's a lot of shearing forces on the knee depending on where the foot plate is and how it's positioned, you know.
Every hack squat hurts my knees, and my knees never hurt on free weight squats or pendulums, but hack squat.
Yeah, and it's funny, people do them because they go, oh, they're great. And even though their knees bother them, it's almost like the hip thrust.
Let's talk about that, Scotty.
Well, I mean, I think social media is
extremely popular right now.
Yeah,
It is.
and most of my women clients, you know, I go, what do you feel it? I ask them, where do you feel? I go, you know, I'm really feeling it, like pain in my pelvis, and I'm feeling pain in my lower back. I said, so why do you continue to do that? Well, it's supposed to be the best. I said, well, listen, I am not saying you're not getting glute activation. Okay. But what do the glutes do? Hip extension, either from the hip or the hip with the knee. That's what it does. You I mean, you're really going to cause some pelvic problems, because even with a pad on there, and with the way you thrust, you're really engaging the spinal erectors, which kind of affect the lumbar spine. Again, when we talked about in the beginning, risk, benefit.
So then what do you recommend as a glute exercise? What would be the best glute isolation or exercise?
I love to use a cable with one of those ankle cuffs.
Kicking back, straight back.
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
Gotta try that.
And if I can teach it correctly, using a hyperextension machine, but
Mhm.
lowering the plate all the way below the belly button, and you're not doing spinal flexion. You're really you're using you're engaging the hip to really pull at your glutes and hamstrings. But it's a real mind muscle connection that you have
When
to
you do
teach.
that, you're not coming all the way up, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. And you're a little bit is your back a little bit rounded?
No, it's rounded when I'm going to do spinal flexion.
Okay.
Not when I'm doing quote unquote hip extension, which is going to affect the glutes and hams, you know. And the same thing with like you see, an RDL, people stand too much erect.
Right.
Again, it's all about engaging those glutes and hamstrings. Everybody goes, oh, how come I feel my lower back? Well, that's a prime mover. You need to think about what you're working and pulling with those glutes and hamstrings, and you don't engage the spinal erectors at all. The same thing with me as a bodybuilder, deadlifting. And I think I was telling Eric, I do deficit deadlifts. That's all that I do. And it really helped my glutes get developed for this show. My glutes look better in this show than any show. And I was 5 years, I had competed for 5 years, since 2018. And I equated a lot of that to deficit deads and getting in that squatted position and pulling my glutes and hams. And I told Eric, I was doing, like a lot of reps. Like I think I told him I did 315 for 26 reps.
Something like that. Yeah. It's crazy.
Wow. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I call it bodybuilding deadlift, because I'm
Yeah.
really pulling, I'm down in that squatted position, pulling with those, and I'm raised, and I haven't done nothing since. I always do deficit deads. I don't know anything different now.
Interesting. You'd be if you went back to your regular dead, you'd be a lot stronger now that you've been doing the deficit.
But I'm not concerned with strength. You know what I mean? So my mind doesn't go there,
I know. I hear you.
And now I'm retired. So, I train with a 26-year-old kid who's, got hunger to grow and grow and grow. And I was telling him, dude, I'm retired. I don't have to, I'm just trying to maintain right now. He starts laughing at me. And then we start training and he goes, and he sees me going crazy. He goes, I thought you said you retired.
Yeah, because you got that fire in you, whether you're competing or not, you're going to push. So
you always want to better yourself,
Yeah, no, it's great, man. Your energy
and
is awesome.
I love to train. Love to train. I have so much fun. People don't say, oh, I get to go to the gym. I don't have to go to the gym. That's a big difference, It's something I look forward to, and I am blessed to be able to go to the gym.
A great attitude, man. A great perspective, And
I get to be able to do this,
Yeah, think about if something happened to you where this was taken away, physically you couldn't do it or whatever.
So you have to like embrace these things. You know what I mean? People don't. Because I'm blessed to be able to come here and do this every day. And that's why when I work with people, getting full circle, is that I want every single rep, every single meal, every single minute of cardio to get them one step closer to their goal. And I call it the grind, because it's doing repetitive tasks over and over to get to a goal. And I have like a big sign on my gym. That's what it is. I go, that's what you're doing.
It's true. You're right. It's very repetitive. It's consistency. It's monotony.
I love the monotony.
Yeah.
I thrive on the monotony. Routine. Routine. Oh, do I love routine? I'm a very systematic person. Every day it's the same thing, what I get up, what I do, like from minute to minute,
Did that drive Diana crazy?
At times, yes, especially when I was prepping, because it's magnified,
Yeah.
It does get magnified,
Gotcha. But you do go out for a quote unquote cheat meal with her, don't you? Every once in a
You know,
while.
I don't like the word cheat meal. I
All right.
hate that word because you're not cheat. Like, what are you cheating on?
All
Like,
right.
what, you know?
An untracked meal. How about that? Or an unplanned meal. How about
I did a little bit after the show, but then first of all, she knew for the first 2 weeks, I had to like to deprogram myself. She goes, I know it takes you a while to get out of prep because I was still in it even the day after and the week after and the week after, you know.
Yep.
But I slowly, again, my relax is what most people's prepping is. You know what I mean? But I do make sure that that I'm flexible because there's another person in my life, you know,
that?
and it's not just about me because as we know, bodybuilding can be a very self-centered, selfish sport. Very.
What weight do you hover around right now, Scott? After
Probably
your show?
I compete at 164, maybe I'm 172, maybe.
That's unreal.
Wow.
That's
Well,
It
unreal.
was
guys
funny.
are
I was
disciplined.
training one of my clients today, and she's like, I know what Scott looked like in the show. And she goes, but he still walks around lean. I said, that's where I feel comfortable. And again, especially as you get older, I said, you know what? Small dogs live much longer than big dogs. You know,
True.
Yeah.
Very true.
and I get feeling good is so important. You know what I mean? And what we put in the body to make us like that's what really is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more the what you eat and how it makes you feel kind of just keeps you doing that same routine, you know?
You get addicted to feeling great. You get addicted to it and you don't want to settle for less.
And then knowing what I know and how food affects the body. You know what I mean? What I try to do is educate people on how to really pick the right foods to eat, not just for their body, just for overall health purposes, you know? Again, we talked about being so omega-6 rich, and people buy, oh, it's cage-free eggs. I go, that's a marketing ploy, you know?
Doesn't mean much.
No, but people don't, but the public doesn't know, you know?
Yep. Yep.
And I know, Eric, you're very picky about what you put in your peanut butter and in your supplements, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like we're very picky about what we bring into the store. The funny thing is there's a lot of restaurants down here that have dog menus. The dog menu is healthier than the human menu,
Wow. Wow.
believe it or not.
Speaking of, Scotty actually was a huge help in me getting Paw Power off the ground. He was an incredible, I guess, conduit, really introduced me to the manufacturer of the dog butter. And originally I wasn't interested in doing dog peanut butter. I wanted to do straight up supplements, right? Like we're kind of launching now. And that's how I wanted to start the company. But, you guys know in supplement manufacturing, these contract manufacturers, they want pretty high minimums. And you got to lay out a lot of cash. And we didn't have it to start the business. And Scott told me that he's training a client that manufactures peanut butter and that I should talk to him. And I was kind of like, I don't know. And I started talking to him and he was willing to give me a very low minimum and work with us. And that really helped get Paw Power going. And who knows, maybe I wouldn't have started for a year. Maybe I wouldn't have started for a while.
Wow.
Because it was taking a long time, but that changed the course of everything for me. So I do appreciate that, Scotty. And that was a great connection, man.
It's funny. I was coaching him and his wife. They lived here in Delray. Now they're up in Nashville. And he was out of Colorado and actually trained the same gym as Phil Heath. Ombros Gym.
Right. That's right. That's right. I think he actually knows Gennaro too. I think they knew each other.
Yes, he does.
Weird connection, which is
it's a very,
strange.
very small world. I got to tell you.
Yeah. But
So, any of you guys going to the Olympia this year?
Possibly we'll be there.
And if he's going up,
It's just up the road for me. I'm in Orlando, so
what's the date this year of the Olympia?
I think it's November 3rd to the 5th.
yeah, very first days of November.
There's a Pittsburgh pet show that weekend I might be going to, but if not, maybe I'll try and go to the Olympia.
I cannot go. I mean, it's literally up the
you're
road.
right there.
It's right there.
For
Yeah.
sure, man.
Yeah.
Hell yeah! If it was in New York or whatever, I'd go. Yeah.
And it's gonna be an excellent show. Excellent. The top 7 probably could swap. You never know what's gonna happen.
All right, so let's hear your prediction. I made mine on the last show. I said Derek Lunsford's going to win, but what's your prediction?
I think Derek, like, we haven't seen anything of Hottie. No, so there's no hype. So we're really not thinking about him, but we see a lot of Derek. And I think that's what skews us a little bit. You know what I mean? We're humans, you know? But yeah, I mean, Derek, I mean, his physique is incredible. His shoulder to waist ratio, his quads. I mean, and then there's a guy like Samson. You know, if he dials it in,
He looks big. Oof.
and don't count out Nick.
Yeah, Nick's going to be a factor for sure.
Look, his work ethic. You know, he lives, breathes, drinks, sleeps bodybuilding 24/7. You know, and he has a confidence. You know, he says he's winning the Olympia. You know, and mindset is a lot to do with it. You know,
I think you need to have that at that level. You
yeah,
have to believe. If you don't believe, I don't think you have much of a chance of it happening.
yeah. But I you know, Nick, Samson, Hottie, and Derek. Those four can swap it any which way, you know. And again, I don't want to dismiss Andrew or Hunter. I don't know if I'm missing anybody else in the or even Big Ramy for that matter. You know,
I think he's done. I just don't think he's going to be in the top anymore.
or Brandon.
Yeah, again, same thing. I don't think he's.
But you haven't seen anything. That's why there's no hype. So you're not thinking about him. You know.
Right.
You know who I feel is a dark horse in all this, only from recently, is Hassan Mustafa. Really, really impressed with that last two shows that he did and what he looked like. And I was like, wow, if that guy dials it in again, he's just ridiculous.
Yeah, but he's only done it once. He's only dialed it in once. You know, he has. He has challenges with conditioning. He has challenges. I'm not saying he doesn't get there, but it's a challenge for him. You know, I think he's working with AJ Sims. Am I correct on that?
I don't know who he's working with, to be honest with you.
Or Chad? Or is he working with Chad?
I know Hollings had just announced he's going to be working with Milo Sarchev.
I like James a lot. We got to meet
Yeah,
him in England.
so do
Like
I.
super nice guy.
And well, John Jewett, you know,
Right.
he won a show, and he's although he's gonna have a hard time making 212 again. He's having trouble now, you know.
But at the Olympia, he's doing 212, right?
Yeah. I remember I met him with you
Yes.
At Real Gym at the photo shoot, you know.
That's right. Right by my house. Yep, that's right. That's correct.
I listened to his podcast. Smart dude. Very
Extremely
smart.
He is killing it with J3 University.
Yeah.
He's doing very, very well with that. Killing it.
You know, when I met him at that photo shoot, you know, I didn't realize he was as educated as he was, you know.
Super smart guy and very nice. And Renee, his wife, is super nice too. Great, like, power couple.
Yeah. Well, Chris Tuttle, who was also an animal guy, really smart dude, you know.
Yep. Another awesome person. Yeah.
They're putting a lot of great content out there. Definitely.
It's good, man. It's cool to see like the amount of that. Like nowadays, you know, social media is a double-edged sword, but there is a lot of cool stuff that we didn't have access to back in the day.
But how do you get a filter through it? You know what I mean?
Right. If I was young coming up, I'd probably be confused, to be honest.
Yeah.
There's so much, and everybody sounds like an expert, and who's right and who's wrong, and I'd probably be confused.
Yeah.
I know I'm biased, but I tell any young buck who's like looking how to eat or train or what they should do, I'm like, just pull up Evan Centopani YouTube videos. You're going to get great basic advice on food prep and what you should eat and how to keep it simple. And it'll probably put you on it definitely put you on a way better road than you're probably on right now.
And he also rides the line that I rub on health perspective as well as a cosmetic perspective, you know?
That's correct.
Yes.
Fellas, we only have a few more minutes, so any last questions for Scotty? Get him in.
Yeah, I want to know if he's doing the New York Pro or the Arnold or what.
No, I am retired. You know, I mean, winning 4 pro cards of the universe was actually a dream come true. At 60 years old, you know, I'm going to be probably 61 at that point, and competing at 164 pounds. I don't think anything could top what I did. You know, but I got to tell you, it's very hard to scale back. You know.
Super happy
to know that you can compete, right? But I mean that's award enough and to make sure that you stay healthy and continue. That's the main thing.
You know, I was born a bodybuilder, and I will die as a bodybuilder. You know, it's something that I think I was born with to do. You know what I mean? Because I've been doing it for my entire life. And now I put my effort into the people that I work with, and I live vicariously through them. I have, you know, I have a gentleman who just won, you know, a WBFF transformation challenge, meaning that he won the worlds, you know, meaning, you know, all these people that he went from 480 pounds down to, you know, he competed with when I was coach at 180 and won, you know, and there's a documentary coming out about him September 9th. That's already won awards at some of the film festivals abroad. And then I have 3 other clients that are competing in October at a show here. So my energy is going into them and a lot of my other clients, you know. And I guess it motivates them because they go, well, you know, look what Scott did at 60. I should be able to do this at 30 or 25, you know.
Right.
You know, setting an example, I think, is important, you know.
Scotty, are you open if somebody wants to hire you? How can they get in touch with you? How could that happen?
Well, on my Instagram, now that I've got it back, because it was funny, real quick, when I got my pro card, I'm not really a social media guy. My wife made a couple of posts and like a reel, and it got hacked. I never got hacked as long as I have it. So I started a new one. It's IFBB Pro _ Scotty Apex, you know, which is not hackable now because it's got, you know,
Two-step verification.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, if you guys are interested, you can hit up Scotty there on the DMs, slide into his DMs, as the kids say.
Yeah, and I work with both competitors and non-competitors. I love them both. You know, it's like two different speeds. That's all. You know, but a lot of my lifestyle clients then want to become competitors. Believe it or not.
Interesting.
Because you get them to a level and they see they get a glimpse of what that lifestyle is and get it in seeing what happens on stage, and they're like, well, can I do that? You know, could you help me with that? Could you help me do that? Do I have the potential to do that? You know?
Interesting.
So everybody has different goals, and you know, some people's goal is just to get on stage once and say they can accomplish that. You know?
Right.
It was extremely motivating seeing you win that, and again, for all those that you didn't know, that was only July 1st.
Yeah.
That you won the show, right? So very recent, you know, competition. Like I said, earning 4 pro cards. I didn't even know that you hadn't competed since 18 or 19. So that's even, to me, that makes it even more impressive that you came back after not, you know, being on, correct me if I'm wrong, not being on stage for 4 or 5 years and winning the show. That to me is,
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't typically happen. Once you start missing those years and competing and getting off.
But I never really. Yeah, and I always trained like I was competing. You know what I mean? Like, you know, working body parts that, you know, someone wouldn't work until they were getting ready for a show. Like always working my abdominals, always working my calves. You know, always working those glutes, knowing that, you know what, I'm probably going to get on stage again.
You used to call it Champions Day, right?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. Yeah, that's right. It's a good memory. Just a really good memory. Yeah. I used to see Eric on a Saturday in this gym called Retro Fitness, and I go, it's Champions Day, and I go, what? I go, well, it's calves, abs, you know, and that's cardio, you know.
Hey, it works, awesome. Man. Obviously worked.
Yeah. Well, listen, I just want to thank you, all of you, guys, for really having me on. It's really been a pleasure and you know, and a blessing and a privilege.
Yeah, thank you for coming on with us. We learned.
Yeah, we love having you
a lot,
and we know we could do another few hours of content. We didn't scratch the surface.
I know we have like there were certain things I was thinking about. I'm like, we didn't even go there, you know.
Yeah, you're welcome back on anytime, buddy.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. And everyone look for this again on Gym Guys Podcast. And we'll be posting it shortly, and make sure you have the information on how to follow Scott and learn more about healthy lifestyle and, most importantly, longevity. So thank you, everyone. Episode 19, Gym Guys Podcast. Scott, thank you so much again for your time and your dedication, and obviously you being an inspiration to all of us. We won't be getting on the stage soon, but we're definitely gonna get better from
maybe you will after this episode. Maybe you'll be motivated.
Yeah. No, I just,
come on, Scotto.
I gotta outdo you with like some sort of bicep pose on the screen one day. That's what I'll do. But thanks again, everyone. Really appreciate it. and look for more great episodes with guests such as Scott. We can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Take care.